Right, today I'm going to show you how to join timbers together. So when you've got two bits of timber, sometimes you want to widen the board because wide boards are really expensive. But there are absolutely loads of ways to join boards together. And what I wanted to do in this video is show you the different ways that I use. And a question that I wanted answering myself was, which way is the best? Which way is the strongest? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this machine here, I'm going to put some timber in, and then I'm going to start putting some weights on. Like so. We're going to keep on putting weights on until it breaks, and that way we're going to get an idea of how effective the joint really was. First joint, biscuit joint. So biscuit joint is when you use one of these little bits of timber here, put a groove in a timber, as you can see, glue it all together and clamp it up, and what will happen is that that you should get a very strong joint, but it also keeps the boards level with each other as long as you put the groove in the right place. Now, with any joint, the most important thing that you can do, or what I was always taught, is that you must match the edges and get them to pretty much touch each other all the way along the edge. So you need to plane it and just get the two ends to match each other. I've been told that it really does affect the strength of the joint. Right, so the first one I'm going to test. I'm going to glue it, I'm going to put a groove in it, and I'm going to clamp it together. Whoa. So as you can see, well, we don't have any basis on it yet, but what you can see is it took 50 kilos, but it actually broke along the biscuits themselves. So that means it was a joint failure. So it means that the timber hasn't gone. It means that the joint was the weakest point, which, well, we'll find out whether that's to be expected or not, won't we? Right, so the next one is the double spline. So this is 2 grooves, 2 splines. So I think that this should be quite a strong joint because you're getting twice as much timber between the failure plane. So if you glue it all up, then I think it should be quite strong. The only reason I wouldn't normally use this is because it's a little bit more awkward to do. You have to make the pieces of timber to go in there, so it's a little bit of an annoying sort of joint to make. So it's not really something you'd use. I've seen it used in bar work and stuff like that, but it's not something that I would normally use. So let's see what it works out at. So if we look at the failure mode again, it looks like it has a bit of timber, but it's also sort of broken at the joint again, and it's broken at this edge where the groove is. It took 59 kilos, so that was more than the biscuit joints, but it's taken a little bit more, but it's not taken a lot more. So would I use this joint for all the effort? I'll probably discount this joint going forward, but there you go. That's probably why no one uses it anyway. Right, next one. So the next one is an unusual one. So on face of it, you'd think to yourself, right, let's do it like this. So it's just basically butting the timber up to each other and gluing them against it. So you would think that it wouldn't take much load. So basically, fit it as normal, so get it absolutely so that the two sides mate and touch each other, glue it and clamp it. So let's do that one. Right. As you can see, that took a lot of load, and that it's taken me by surprise. So when you actually look at the failure of it, it's actually the timber that's broken, and the actual joint itself hasn't gone at all. So that makes me question, why am I bothering to put biscuits in and stuff like that when I can just put them up against each other? I suppose the simple question to that is when you're gluing something up, then you need the biscuits in to guide it and to keep it all level when you're clamping up and everything. Otherwise, everything will shift. But in this case, it was easy because it was a small thing. But very, very effective, this joint, and very, very strong. So so butt joints, maybe. Right, to test the hypothesis, let's do a butt joint, which is a poor fit. So I've not really planed it very well, but it's close enough. And let's not clamp it up. And if the theory is right, then it should take a lot less load. Okay, let's find out. As you can see, that's very interesting. So when you've got a poor fitting joint and you haven't clamped it, then it took 40 kilos, which is about half of what the one that was clamped and fitted did. Which that's really interesting. So that for me is showing the importance of clamping and the importance of a really close fit. So if you don't do that, you're reducing the strength of this joint by half. Right, I'm going to show you a really old-fashioned joint now. So this is where you install a couple of screws in here, cut some keyholes in the other end, and then you put the glue on, and then you put them through the keyholes, and then you hammer it on. So I was showing this when I was about 15 or 16. It was a really easy way of jointing boards when you were on site and everything like that. It was a bit of a fiddle, but you used to get decent results. So what I've done on this one is I've fitted the edge really carefully, screwed the screws, got a really close fitting keyhole, and then hammered it. And if you look at the grain goes sort of diagonally, and what happens is when you hammer it, then you force the timbers together, so you're probably not going to get as good clamping action as a clamp, but you'll get reasonable clamping action. So this is fitted but not clamped. Let's see what happens. $50, 65, 65, not bad. Well, that's actually quite interesting. So what that's showing to me is that so this took 65 kilos, which in comparison to the purely butted one of 82 kilos is pretty good. And you can actually tie them close together, or you can keep the joints close together with the screws. So it's inferring to me that it's actually the surface area, how much surface area you've got left in this joint here, to how strong the joint is with this type of load. And that's interesting, because I would have thought it would have been the mechanical interlock, so the bits crossing the plane, but that's not what the results are showing, which is why we're doing it. So I'm going to have another go at a biscuit joint. So this is the acid test, isn't it, to test the hypothesis. So this time we've done a biscuit joint, and as you can see, I've carefully just took out enough timber to fit the biscuit in. So we're keeping as much of the vertical surface, the mating surface, intact as possible. I've also fitted it perfectly, so it's absolutely sort of mated perfectly, and there's not much of the timber taken out, and there's just one biscuit in this one. So let's see. Right, that's really interesting. So this joint took 72 kilos, and the break is through the joint, so you think it is interfering a little bit, but not much. So in comparison to a pure butt, which was 82 kilos, and this one is 72 kilos, the they're not far off the same. So you could argue, you could argue that that there might be some differences in the timber itself, because timber is a natural material. You're never quite sure how it's going to behave. So maybe that's the difference. But without doing another 20 sort of experiments, you don't really know. But it seems that, again, with leaving the vertical face intact and just putting one biscuit in has made a dramatic increase, or made a bigger increase. So it's telling me don't bother with the biscuits, or put as few biscuits in as you possibly can. I've got robins in the garage as well, by the way. They love it here, flying around. Right, so the last one, it's a joint that we all use many times, dowel joints. So drill some holes either side, some into one end, some into the other end, match them all up, glue them, mate the surface again, make it flat, put it together. And if the hypothesis is correct, this should also take a good amount of load. Let's find out. $70. Right, so that's interesting. So again, this one, double fitted, this one came out at 70 kilos. And it didn't break at the joint, it broke away from the joint, and it's broken where the dowel finishes. So that's telling me that the dowel is sort of stiffening it up and producing a really strong joint. So I'm not going to do any more, because I just can't. It's just too tedious to do it. But it looks like the dowel joint also produces a really strong joint, because it doesn't interfere too much with the face. And with this one, I actually put quite big holes in there. So I did a 12mm drill, 12mm dowel. If I did a 10mm dowel, I think I might have got a bit more out of it, but it's difficult to know. For me, it's been quite an eye-opener. You can sort of, it's really good sometimes to try and validate your opinions. I've been told. So what I think I've learned from that is that to make sure that you really mate the timbers together, get them as close as possible. Make sure you clamp your timbers together with a good quality PVA, with a good PVA glue, and don't disturb or minimize the amount of disturbance on the vertical face, or the base that you're butting together, because that's where the strength is in that thing. So as we can see, the strongest joint, surprisingly, was purely butted together. But as I've already discussed, it's a little bit of an impractical joint. To mitigate that, put some biscuits in, but put as few biscuits in as you possibly can, and only groove out where you're going to put the biscuit. So maintaining the face, maintaining the strength, and keeping the boards in line. That's the absolute key to all of this, and it's been a fantastic, or quite a lot of fun. This experiment has, and so it's no longer opinion; it's fact. Well, sort of semi-fact, anyway. Right, if you've enjoyed this, subscribe.